Well, when you think about a business, every bit of the puzzle is absolutely essential to the way it works. And the changing nature of the way we're doing business and management happens, and global expansion happens, means that it's too much for just the CEO to do everything or the COO. So the different levels within an organization all need to be working together. Now, CMOs, key part of the process, because while many companies have big brands, they don't know how to deal with them. And you need to have that bit of the equation lined up and aligned with the rest of the organization's strategy, values, goals, objectives. Because you can do great stuff, but if no one knows about it, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't have the effect with consumers, or indeed if you're a B2B business, with the businesses you're trying to target. Look, the UK has been global from its outset, essentially. You know, this tiny country takes over a third of the world. How does it do it? It's being very open, globally minded, is a big part of it. Not the only part, but a big part of it. And I think in a certain strata, I would say FT readers, for instance, in London, they're tapped into what's going on in the rest of the planet. And the intellectual capital and the creativity that comes out of that is quite extraordinary. And I think sometimes we forget London, particularly in the context of Europe, is so well connected to the rest of the world, both in terms of the people who are here, but also the people who go from out of here. And I think we shouldn't lose sight of that. The creative services is a massive part of the economy. And so I think if we can just build on that and realize that actually we're not a kind of parochial home nations, home counties kind of country, but actually we're a country with really great global roots and great global links, it can be a global world-beating country. But there's some big systemic problems we need to think about, both in terms of mindset, recognizing that that's part of what the UK is about, but B, actually make some hard choices about where we need to devote our attention.
Obviously, we talk to a lot of CMOs on a daily basis, but we interview quite a lot of CMOs for our leading global brand study as well. And if I were to identify the top 3 challenges that they come back to us with, I would say first it's social media. I mean, everybody's grappling with the how do we do this right? I mean, the fact that they need to do it is accepted, but what every organization is struggling with is, one, how much? I mean, shift of media budgets and so forth, shift of people, how many people, roles and responsibilities, and how do we measure it? But particularly also, and that's relevant in the global context, the what we call what happens in Vegas no longer stays in Vegas. You know, I mean, the Prince Harry example just makes it real. If your global brand does anything that it shouldn't be doing anywhere in the world, your consumers here are going to hear about it tomorrow. So one, it's about internal communication processes to make sure you know what you're doing in different places, but also just, again, having the infrastructure in place. So it's social. That's a big challenge. The second is all around purpose, because people are finding that product innovation and so forth will remain important, and Apple shows us every time. But there are not a lot of categories where there are bad products. There's a commoditization, it's transparency of markets, it's a very flat world. So what's going to help you differentiate? And purpose. What do you stand for? How are you making a difference? How are you using your power in the market to change things for the better? Is something that consumers, but also employees, want to know. And so CMOs are asking themselves, what do we stand for? And are we true to it? And the third area is definitely going global. If it's a company that's already global, it's about how do I get people to talk to each other and learn from each other so that we can move faster and sort of pick the best ideas and run with them. And if we're not global, how do I go global? Because I can't afford to have all that investment in strategy and innovation and then just sort of spend it on one market. That's not a feasible economic model anymore. So I would say it's digital/social. It's about purpose, because sustainability is now table stakes. So what's the next step? What do we really stand for? And it's about going global. How do we do that well? And how do we build the machine, the marketing machine, to enable that? Well, it's a very good question. A lot of CMOs, I think, understand philosophically that they need to go global, but are asking themselves, what will it take to win? And what our research, and this is the leading global brand study that I'm now quoting, which is a massive quant database. This benchmarks in 6 weeks, any global organization can see how are we doing? Are we effective globally? Are we giving people the information, the tools, the clarity on strategy and the clarity on roles? And what that's really playing back is that there is absolutely no substitute for great global marketing strategy, what we would call the what. You need to have very clear, across the whole company, what universal truth consumer truth are we playing to? That's not culturally dependent. It's something that's innate to all of us. But if you don't have that clear, then your brand will go many directions. So that's the first, locking down that universal truth. And then, as we just discussed, talking about what do we stand for, what's our purpose, clarity on vision, very, very important. And then thinking through the third aspect of the what of the global brand, how do we translate that into an experience for our consumers everywhere? And that consumer experience will have to be different in different places because consumers are different, but it's true to the purpose, which is very global. But that's not enough. What CMOs realize now, and we call it the global brand CEO mindset, is that to just think that to have a great marketing idea is not enough. You need that other aspect, that CEO aspect of building the machine to deliver, to embed the strategy and to execute it in a relevant way everywhere globally. So great CMOs are now talking a lot about connecting all the different teams around the world, inspiring them, because basically any strategy will get executed if the top 20 people that you need to get it done are inspired about it. Creating absolute clarity around how every local strategy ladders up to that global vision. So it's not everybody doing the same thing, but everybody having a strategy that's derived from the same vision. And then clarity, very important, on roles and responsibilities. It's the number one thing we get played back, where people afterwards say, oh God, if only at the beginning of the project we had said who does what. Because now we're 3/4 down the way and suddenly people are starting to interfere and we don't want them there. And that's when it gets personal and actually people get hurt and burn out and leave, fights, it's ugly. So roles and responsibilities. And finally, on the how do you do this, the equipping people for success. We call it building capability. That's about training. That's about defining your way of doing marketing. It's about case studies of success inside the company. No one wants to learn about Apple. They know it's great. But how did the German team launch this in 3 months and get to a 10% market share? What can I learn from that? What's the checklist that I can apply to my market? So it's really about not just the what, but also the how do I build a global marketing machine? And that's what the CMO of the future is really thinking about. Well, it's interesting because when you talk to global marketers, it takes only a few seconds to connect, because if you've been there, you know what it feels like. And it's something around having started your career with a passion for marketing, if you like, a passion for the what. And suddenly one day you wake up and you find yourself, we describe this in our book, The Global Brand CEO, you find yourself sitting in the lobby of a Thai hotel on your own. Nobody there wants to go out to dinner with you because you're that person from Global that's going to get things nasty. And you're sitting there, it's probably a public holiday in the country you're from, but not there. And you're thinking, how did this happen? I'm in all these politics of people not wanting my ideas, rather than really having creative work sessions around a great marketing strategy. And it's sort of a aha moment where global marketers really connect. And it is a very lonely place, because often these marketers sit in HQ with supply chain people that are very global, with finance people that are very global. And there's actually, if you like, they look down at the marketer and go, so why isn't marketing more global? So there's sort of the push from HQ, and there's a very big pushback of, oh, there comes the global marketer. So as a mindset, it's a lonely role, but it takes what SpencerStuart called low ego. We call it a servant leadership mindset. It really does take a very strong investment in getting the key countries to understand that there is no global market. There are just a few very important markets and then the rest. And if those very important markets don't grow, nobody grows. Global doesn't grow. The brand is not successful globally. Until they know and feel that you understand that, they're not going to listen to you. And that requires a lot of listening on your side. And so we call that the sort of servancy part of leadership. Once you've established that position, everybody respects that we can't have vanilla strategy. We can't do what 5 markets want. Somebody needs to stand up and say, okay, I've listened to all of you. This is where we're going. And that's leadership. You have to earn that role by the servancy. So we call it servant leadership. It's something we stole from Goldberg, who was a philosopher in the 60s. I think it's very apt for the global brand director. EffectiveBrands is only 12 years old. And we created the company because we saw a real niche, global marketing leaders. Now, you could argue that it's not a niche at all, because it's all the big brands in the world, but it's very few people that actually get into and grow into that role. Over time, it will be more. But I think all of us, having come from client side ourselves, recognize that sort of feeling of loneliness, and also that trying to mix the what and the how, and not going off on a tangent on either of them. We work with our clients, I think, on a real we've been there basis, but also on a challenge basis. There is a lot of consultants out there that will tell you you're right. And we really make it our job to find out what the rest of the organization is thinking outside the tower, and come back to the marketing leader and say, look, we understand what you're trying to communicate, but when you say X, people think Y. And you've got to start with recognizing their reality, reflecting that, talking to them about it, listening to them about that, and then earn your leadership role. So our relationship is a little different than many other consultancies. Sometimes people joke that it's therapy. It's much more about coaching. It's really about challenging and making sure that the global marketing leaders, when they get in front of their troops, when they get in front of their countries, are immediately recognized as the servant leader. Those that understand that the markets need to succeed for them to succeed, and at the same time are respected enough to be able to take decisions and lead everyone.
So we've undertaken a study recently to try and get under the skin of what's going on in international marketing, because we very much feel that we are going from a situation where there's been this somewhat sort of simplistic swing between global strategies and local strategies. But there's a new factor, and that is the emergence of strong emerging markets, China, India, we know all of them, but as powerful markets in their own right. And what that is telling us is that a new breed of marketer is going to be needed, particularly marketers who understand and have a real sense of the local nuances in that marketplace as a way of feeding back into the global strategies, so that we're no longer talking about imposing a local strategy, nor in fact are we talking about solely local solutions, but understanding the needs and wants of local consumers in a way that actually meets the need of the global brand framework. There are a number of attributes emerging in this new scenario. The table stakes are the usual ones you expect from a marketer, the functional skills you'd expect of an excellent marketer. But the overlay on that is international experience is now really important, and not just having run a region at arm's length, and in fact not even just having worked in one market for a couple of years. What we're really hearing from our research is the requirement for executives to have spent at least 3, maybe 4 years really immersing themselves in a market, and then moving on to another market and doing the same thing, and maybe on a third market and doing the same thing. Because then you really are understanding what it's like to have to listen and then adjust and apply strategies in very different circumstances. So I think that's the first factor. What sort of falls out of that, though, and the question is whether this is something that's sort of inherent or something that can be learned, but is a set of intrinsic skills, which very much revolve around listening skills, around humility, around a real ability to co-create and collaborate with the people around you, rather than dictate or simply just listen and repeat parrot fashion what the market is looking for, because the market is looking for some form of interpretation, and the brand will be looking for some sort of interpretation. So we think that this is around a mindset. It's not something that exists on a CV. It's something that has to be dug deep into, but we think that that could be the determining factor in success as an international marketer in this new scenario. One of the issues that we're talking to a lot of our clients about is how to help them resource in this new world. And there is something of a dilemma, because there are strong global marketers, perhaps coming from a slightly old school perspective, and there are strong local marketers, but there aren't enough of them. So how do you bridge that gap? So much of what we're trying to do is to help clients understand that talent base does exist on a pan-global basis. There are very few of them, and there is definitely a talent deficit in that respect. So new strategies will include looking at returnees, for example, so people who have been educated, brought up and trained in Western markets. So typically we would say, for instance, in China, you have great cohorts of individuals who have been brought up in the United States, having left during the Cultural Revolution. So bringing those back into China to actually to fill that gap and bring real sophistication and expertise to those markets. But these are some of the issues that our clients are having to deal with right here, right now.